Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to understand your dreams, then do we have the Llewellyn's Little Book of Dreams show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Michael Lennox, psychologist, astrologer, and dream expert, and the author of 3 phenomenal books on dreams, including Llewellyn's Complete Dictionary of Dreams and his latest Llewellyn's Little Book of Dreams. And that's just what I want to talk with him about today, about how to understand and interpret our dreams for greater understanding and insight into our lives. That, plus we'll talk about lucid dreaming, dream paralysis, lessons from refrigerators, Jung fighting with Freud, Tevye and the Fiddler on the Roof, and what in the world brain poop has to do with anything. So welcome back to the show, Michael. Are you ready to shine?
I am. We're going to cover every single one of those topics in an hour. That's awesome. I'm down. Let's go.
Much more.
Okay. All right.
Woohoo! Woohoo! All right. So before we dive into all of the above, what was your dream at 3 years old?
Oh, it was amazing. It was terrifying. It was me in a kind of empty landscape. So I was aware of myself. And at the same time, I was aware of sort of above me a kind of gigantic enormity, and sort of below me a minuscule, infinitesimally smallness. Now, I understand that today as infinity. I was experiencing in the dream state infinity, that we are in this sort of level of consciousness here, that above us there's something enormous, inside of us there's something minuscule like molecules, and the solar system is the same shape as a molecule, as within, so without, as above, so below. But at 3 years old, it was just a terrifying but also engaging dream image. Like, it was both terrifying, but I don't know what the other word would be for my 3-year-old consciousness, but engaging, let's just say that. And I never forgot it. Now, I have heard as a dream expert thousands and thousands of dreams, and I finally, about 10 years ago, heard somebody else describe the exact same dream. I was very pleased when that moment happened, because it just was a universal connection to all that there is.
Beautiful. So let's go from there and let's talk about childhood. And it's interesting because I had a dear friend who's a rabbi, a very mystical rabbi. He contacted me on Facebook earlier today as I was reading about Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof. And so I felt we had to go there.
Oh, God. All right. I don't always tell this particular story, but it is the seminal childhood experience of mine that really led to me becoming somebody who was a dream interpreter. Was my mom had the show album to Fiddler on the Roof as one of her many record albums. We were a music listening household, and so every weekend music was playing all day long. Lots of classical, lots of folk, Peter, Paul and Mary, and all, but Fiddler on the Roof was one of the show albums. And on that album, in that show, there is a dream sequence. It's a very exciting piece of music. It's long. And in the beginning, there's some dialogue on the album. And Tevye wakes up with a big sort of geschrei. And Golda, his wife, says, "Tell me what you dreamed, and I'll tell you what it meant." So I heard that from before I could be conscious, because the show came out, I think, before I was born. And I heard it 1,000 times in my childhood, so that later, as a young teenager, reading Freud's interpretation of dreams and really getting that there was something valuable about looking at a dream for its meaning, I was out and about in social experiences as a kid in high school, and I just remembered Golda, "Tell me what you dreamed, and I'll tell you what it meant." And I did that. And what I found when I did was that I listened to a dream that someone was telling me, and I had things to say. And I just spoke extemporaneously about what I had to say based on what I had heard. And people paid attention. People said, "Oh my God, that's so interesting," or "I would never have thought of that," or "That makes so much sense." And that's how I discovered that somehow in this way I have of thinking and expressing that I had a gift. And I followed that, and it led me here.
beautiful. And you went to school. You got a master's and a doctorate in psychology, which is interesting. There's an irony to that because of what you were taught in dream interpretation, or lack thereof, and where you are now.
Well, because I was interpreting dreams for 2 decades before I went to school. And I did bump up against the fundamental educative perspective in psychology about dreams is you never tell a client what a dream means. You always let them marinate in their own experience. And that's not what I do. That's not what I do. I tell people what their dreams mean. And I could bump up against that idea of some establishment saying you should never do that. And I understand why, because most people have no business inserting themselves into somebody else's experience through their intuition. That's not what psychology is or therapy provides. However, that's what my gift is. Like, that's my gift. And so I've cultivated a practice where people come for that. In fact, if I've ever tried to do it any other way, people object. They're like, no, I want your interpretation. That's what I came for. But there is good reason for not messing with somebody's dream, because dreams are deeply personal. They happen inside somebody. It's an intimate experience, and only the dreamer owns the dream. So from that perspective, I respect and understand the notion of don't interfere with that. However, I'm sorry, but I have a gift. The gift is channeling divine wisdom. I respond to the images that come at me in the storyline that the dream is expressing, and I have information for the dreamer as a result. And so I have cultivated a life and a practice and an experience where that is what is desired and that is what is wanted. And so I do it.
Woohoo! Woohoo! So we're going to go down this whole road, and I have two dreams later on that I set an intention for last night that we'll talk about. But as an example, one day earlier this week, and I write down all my dreams religiously, neurotically. I'm making a run for it to get them down. I type, so I sprint for the computer while I'm replaying it, linking it in my brain. I had the largest, fuzziest, furriest, most lovingest dog. You couldn't even see his eyes. He was covered with so much black and brown fur. He was like bigger than a bear. Appeared to me in a dream earlier this week. Why did he appear?
Yay. Pardon?
Why did he appear?
Why did he appear? Well, this is a perfect example to help people understand how it is that I work. That I'm not making something up that you don't know. I'm using what we all know to codify the universal meaning of a symbol. Dogs are easy to understand because we have, as a human species, domesticated dogs and cats. Why? So that we can experience this profound sense of unconditional love. Dogs especially, because they're so enthusiastic and loyal and playful and loving. It's like my favorite story like this is lock your dog and your boyfriend in the trunk of your car for 3 days, and who's happy to see you? Right? So dogs exude this unconditional, unbridled, joyful sense of love that's unconditional. No matter what, they respond to you with love. And we gather them in and we take them into our homes. Why? So we can have that experience of this notion that there is a love that never ends, that's always joyful, that's always happy to be alive and exuberant and participating in life itself. Yeah. So as a symbol, they represent our capacity to experience life in that way. You are a rather unbridled, joyful kind of dude, right? You are, I would imagine if I locked you in the trunk of my car for 3 days, you'd be happy to see me.
Woohoo! Relatively.
Yeah, right. Yeah, relatively. We're never going to actually try that out as a scientific experiment, but you understand that your capacity for joyful expression, a kind of enthusiasm of that life is fun to be in, is very dog-like.
Yeah.
So now, why this week did you call that in? I invite you to think about that from this perspective. If you needed a reminder of life being that fun and joyful, perhaps that's why the dream came along, to sort of remind you of that so that you could get up and face a particular Tuesday or Wednesday remembering that even when appearances are otherwise, that life is a joyful ride.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's go from there. I'm going to skip Jung and Freud arguing with each other. We can discuss. You can read about that in the book. But let's go to the 5 distinct stages of sleep, brain poop, and why this is all important.
Okay, well, people are always asking, why do we dream? And so I always like to be able to start with, what do we know about the brain and the function of dreaming that has nothing to do with the mystical or the unconscious expression that dreams might be, but that there's actually something that's occurring that's rather important for our continued functioning, because if we didn't go into REM sleep, we would lose our minds. The brain is a data collecting machine. All day long, we're collecting data in the form of electronic impulses that synapses in the brain form. Brains are cells. They're little factories. Just like every other cell, the brain cells make energy, they do certain things, and they create metabolic waste. They poop. If we don't clean that poop out, then the brain's capacity to interpret data is stuck doing 2 things at the same time. It will be responding to new data that's coming in, but also responding to the data that's already in there in the form of metabolic waste and previously formatted synapses. We would lose our minds. We would be like, what am I perceiving? Is that a doorbell now, or did that happen 3 days ago? And I can't tell the difference. That's why when we lose sleep or stay up for more than a night or two, we begin to see things and hear things that aren't there. We have little psychotic bitty breaks. So what happens in REM sleep, that rapid eye movement sleep where we have the most vivid dreams? First of all, the thinking mind is sleeping. So we're not oriented to time, space, or identity. That's asleep. The brain cells shrink. The fluid in between the brain cells fills up, and all of the metabolic waste goes out of the cell membranes into the spaces in between cells. And then as we come out of that, the cells regain their shape, squeezing all of that metabolic waste out, which then drains into the bloodstream through the blood-brain barrier, and boom, the brain is cleaned up. Simultaneously during that, we also have the experience of reliving the day's events. And the theory is, we don't know this for sure, but the theory is that by doing that, the brain is categorizing information and putting it into different places. Some information is irrelevant, so it just gets cast off into some abyss. Some information is relevant enough to be incorporated into short-term memory, and we make that decision during REM sleep. This is why we so often dream of our day's experience, because part of what's happening in the brain while we're sleeping is we're reliving the day, and we're saying, oh, I got to remember that. I'm studying calculus, and I better remember how that formula works. But like when I stopped and I picked up that piece of trash on the street and put it in the garbage can, I don't need to remember that. That's irrelevant. So that's all happening in dream. And so the 5 stages of sleep that you referred to are just the way the brain goes from chaotic daytime experience of data, slowly synchronizing those waves as we sink from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to the down in the layers of sleep. And then finally we get to REM. The body is paralyzed by the brain, so it can't act the movement that the brain is exhibiting out, so we don't get up. And then, bam, the brain comes alive, and it's electrifying itself all over the place, and that is the cleaning up of metabolic waste, the formatting of memory, and then these visual narratives that dreams are all happening in that REM cycle. Then that stops. The brain releases the paralysis. We sort of come back up out, and that's the sleep cycle. We do that 3 or 4 times a night.
Awesome. So one of the words you used for a different purpose, but you said categorization. a few minutes ago. So let's talk about the categorization of some different types of dreams. First off, we're replaying the day. For myself, I don't do horror movies, any of that bad stuff, even the news and stuff like that. But if I were, there is no way, shape, or form I would do it before bedtime, because then I am going to have dream type number 1, nightmares.
Yeah. Although,
Yep.
I would argue that though you might have to revisit a scary image to categorize it, this is where we bleed into the functionality that we know about and the mysticism that we're not quite sure about, but that we believe in. I would say that the nightmare is a function of your unconscious or your soul, or however you want to describe it, having the need to work out some conflict where life is scary, because life is scary, and we process that out in our dreams and our sleep experience. We practice what it's like to face our fears in our sleep so that we can wake up and do it better as waking human beings. So let's say you watch a horror movie on a night where you're not in conflict. You're going to go to sleep, process the image, boom, done. But now let's say the very same horror movie is watched, but you are in conflict. There is a challenge in a relationship, or there is some work experience that's making you feel a little bit fearful about life. Now, the unconscious and the rational brain meet up in I'm making this up. It's like a conversation where the brain says, well, I got to process this scary image. And the unconscious says, oh, yeah, well, Michael's a little scared of this experience. Let's borrow that, and we'll create a nightmare. And in the mystical, psychological, unconscious purpose of dreams, which is mysterious, and we don't know for sure if this is true, but we believe it, the nightmare is helping us process, be with, practice fearful expressions and scary passages so that we can wake up thinking, oh, well, I survived that zombie apocalypse. Maybe I can survive the zombie apocalypse that my work is creating at the moment.
I like it, and it leads me to a term that's jumping way ahead, but the term is universality, and I think of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, because that's what we're doing in these cases.
That is absolutely right. The reason why the hero's journey is something we all respond to is because it's a dramatic structure that every human being moves through in great ways and small ways. So what is the hero's journey? First of all, there has to be some sort of a discontent.
Yeah.
There has to be a calling to go and search for something that you can't really know what it is you're searching for, but you feel moved to do it. And you go, you're helped along the way, you find some boon, some great thing, and you bring it back to the community. So whether that's Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, discontented in Kansas, thinking, I got to go find where, what's over the rainbow. And then she goes and she's helped and she comes back. Oh, my God, here's what I found. Home is where the heart is. Or Luke Skywalker, who says, this planet sucks. I just know there's something more interesting out there. And then he goes on the journey. And what does he come back? Oh, I am that magnificent guy who can actually save the universe. And who knew all along that I was the hero? Okay, so that's the hero's journey. Well, the hero's journey is no different for us as an expression of our human life. We're in the womb, the cervix dilates, and light comes in. And we're like, I don't know what that is, but I think I'm going to go toward it. And of course, then we're ripped into life. We're born. We're like, okay, and we're helped along the way, parents, friends, life. We find something that hopefully we take back with us to, our origins. That's a hero's journey as well. So because this hero's journey is so built into the arc of our life, then when we see examples of it in books and movies and television shows, we respond because it's a microcosm of the macrocosm of our own lives. And dreams are this as well. Dreams are narratives that are hero's journey, where our soul is searching for something that the unconscious has to offer. And it might bring us that gift that we then get to take back into our conscious life, saying, oh, I can do a better job of my living today because I received this gift from the unconscious while I slept.
Thank you. And while I want to go through some more of these dream types, it seems important to note right now that while it's not necessary to record our dreams, if we do write this down, if we do see what these heroes' journeys are, what these experiences are, this can truly help us.
Absolutely. What I believe is, first of all, this salient point that you just brought up is the most important thing to say ever about dreams is they are doing their perfect work. You're not missing out if you can't remember them. They are of the unconscious, and so you don't have to know what's happening there to become a better human being day by day. This is the mechanism through which we get wiser, period. Now, I believe that a life led through self-investigation and a willingness to transform habits and patterns that slow us down is a better life. That's it. That's my belief, and that's what I stand for my own life and what I help other people do. I believe that. Dreams are a tool for that process. Self-investigation, transformation of patterns and habits that don't serve us. So by becoming conscious of our dreams in the form of writing them down and then considering them and doing some work with them, we probably speed the process up by virtue of participating in a more conscious way. Why would that even be? Everything about dreams and dream interpretation and living a life of self-introspection and change and transformation is about becoming conscious today of something that was unconscious yesterday. And that's what dreams are doing. And so by remembering them and writing them down, we're increasing our conscious mind's capacity to be aware of something that was unconscious the day before.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So from there, a few other types of dreams. Compensatory dreams.
Most dreams are this. So compensatory, that's to compensate. The similar to what Freud called a wish fulfillment. I came up with compensatory dreams. I don't know that that's a word in psychology. That's my word for any dream that restores some sense of balance. Freud was very interested in this idea of wish fulfillment, that we have a wish and the dream allows us to fulfill that wish. I'm taking that one step further and saying that most dreams are helping us come to some sort of balance by compensating for something that we're missing. But it isn't always clear which one is which. So as a quick example, flying dreams, which is one of the most beautiful, I think it's the most fun you can have while staying asleep. We're heavily grounded by gravity. And so gravity then becomes a symbol for anything that weighs us down, like regret, shame, humiliation, anger. Anything that weighs us down is akin to gravity. And so flying is to be free of anything and everything that might weigh you down. So in that regard, you could feel heavy in your life about stuff that's weighing you down and have a flying dream that compensates for that, and then you wake up sort of restored, where the flying dream added a dose of hopefulness and a sense of, oh, even though this in my daily life is making me feel heavy, I can actually fly in my consciousness, and therefore I feel the compensatory element of the dream restores me to balance. But by the very same token, the flying of the dream could be representing that you're avoiding something that needs your attention on the ground. Same principle. It compensates for something that you're having or doing in your waking life, whether it's, in one direction or another, that the dream experience compensates. It's the same thing if the dream is, I was talking to somebody last night who all through his high school years, he dreamt of being chased.
Yep.
And it stopped as soon as he left high school, right? So we know from that something about his adolescent experience was causing him fear that he was running from.
Yep.
The compensatory nature of that dream was by practicing the running and the fearful experience, he could wake up and actually face his fears. And then when he graduated from high school, the dream stopped. So what we know about that is, while we might not have enough information to know exactly what he was running from in high school, it certainly went away when that milieu was no longer where he lived his life. But the idea is I'm chased in the dream, and it's compensating for how I face life and deal with things that scare me.
Very, very cool. So a brief tangent on that. And on top of the flying dreams that I occasionally get, that we all get, I get a lot of dreams where I'm actually swimming deep underwater and don't need oxygen and feel totally free. Same category?
Same category. Water is symbolic of both the unconscious, because land is consciousness, water is unconscious. And what do we know about water? Like on the ocean, we can see the surface of it, but we can't see what's below the surface. And all the surface does is reflect that which is up here in light. That's exactly what the unconscious does, right? Now, water is also connected to our emotionality. Think about this. We are 70% water. What happens when we cry? We leak. We leak water. And there isn't even an explanation for this. Like, we don't know why we cry, but we know that when emotions are triggered, we cry. We leak water. So in this way, water as a symbol is always taking us into unconscious territory where emotions hold sway. Emotions are scary for many people. They feel overwhelming. To be swimming underwater and to have no fear of that experience is a practice, a compensation for when we might be frightened of our emotions or feel that we might be overwhelmed by them in our waking life. The dream life is sort of giving us an opportunity to be like, oh, this ain't so bad. I can truck with this.
Very, very cool. So from there, another type of dream, and you were mentioning it earlier with the student being chased, anxiety-based, chased, teeth falling out, feeling lost, under attack, tsunamis.
The shark, the tsunami, the zombie, the apocalypse. Everybody has some version of this dream at some point in their life. And in that way, it's a standard dream that is economical for the dreamer. So there's anxiety from life. No matter what might trigger the anxiety, the unconscious says, oh, I have an image for that. And it's usually the same one over and over again for that individual. I had the teeth falling out dream for about 15 years, from my early adulthood to my mid-30s. And that dream has to do with security and feeling strong and confident with your word and your communication, because the teeth are over here and they help us nurture and sustain ourselves, and they attract love when we smile. So to lose them is to feel unable to sort of be in the world with a powerful voice. So I had that as a recurring dream until I grew into myself fully in my mid-30s, right? And so one would imagine that any time I felt insecure or questioned or bumped up against authority, my unconscious would say, oh, Michael's feeling insecure again. Let's grab that dream image that applies. This dreamer that I was talking about last night had gone to the Universal ride of Universal City ride of Indiana Jones, the one where the boulder comes down.
Yep.
So that image imprinted in him as a young boy of, oh my God, I'm in trouble. If I don't outrun this boulder, I'm going to be killed, right? And so that feeling is what landed in his unconscious that matched his high school anxiety experience. And so the unconscious doesn't want to have to work too hard. So when he was anxious, he grabbed that dream. So we all have that version of that. So anybody listening, just think about, okay, yeah, mine is sharks, or mine is being suffocated, or mine is being shot. When that dream happens, the invitation is, what life experience might be causing me anxiety? And if I look at that or think about that or lean in the direction of that, the dream is actually trying to get my attention. Why? So that you can have a better experience of responding to stress and anxiety, so that you aren't crippled by it, but you can in fact rise up above it and have a a more expansive life, even in the face of anxiety.
Woohoo!
Woo!
How about precognitive dreams? And I guess there are two types of those as well.
Well, it's interesting about precognitive dreams. I've been up to this for, a good 30 years, and I have seen a tremendous change out there in human beings over the last 3 decades, where there's more intuition activated. Younger people are being born into a consciousness of intuitive expression that is more ubiquitous than I think it was before. As you know, I'm an astrologer, so I have an appreciation of the astrological cycles that we've been in over the last 3 decades that have increased this. The point that I'm trying to make is, like, when I was first starting out, I only heard people expressing that they had precognitive dreams here and there and infrequently. And almost always they would say, oh, yeah, I have dreams that come true, and so did my mother, and so did my grandmother. Like, that was what I used to hear all the time. Mm-hmm. I think it's different today. I think that the speeding up of consciousness that outside of us looks like the internet and smartphones. Remember, that consciousness of internet and smartphones is an external expression of an internal expansion. Mm-hmm. So we are all living in a moment when the human mechanism is becoming more telepathic, intuitive, energetically connected. Now, on one hand, it looks like a thing I stick in my pocket, which I can turn on and ask any question and get it answered if Siri is behaving that day. But that experience is also an internal experience within each of us as individuals. And that, this is a very long answer to say, it's this good. One little thing. I have seen an increase in precognitive dreaming. Mostly how that plays out is simply being in waking life and saying, oh, I dreamed this. Why I say this is because every once in a while, someone will have a vivid dream about some scary thing that happens, and they think, oh my God, it's precognitive. Probably not. Precognitive dreaming is like you're going down the grocery aisle and you look up at the cereal boxes and you say, holy shit, I dreamed this recently. Not like, oh, my best friend died in a car accident. Oh, my God, I think this is precognitive. It just doesn't work that way. It's just a flimsiness of the veil between time and consciousness that is increasing, where the dream and the waking life are kind of the same thing, and yesterday and tomorrow and the day before are kind of the same thing. And it's just increasing, and to me, it's just delicious.
It's awesome, and it's way outside the scope of this interview. It might be something for another day, but the idea of as above, so below, as in our electronics, so in our consciousness, and that the two are coming closer together, and that the thinness of the veil is and where we're headed. It's, again, outside the scope, but to use your vernacular, delicious, isn't it?
Delicious, delicious. One day we'll have to talk about the future of artificial intelligence and how that could change humanity forever in a most expansive way, but not today.
All right, I'm marking that down.
Okay.
So, all right, on that note, a couple more, then do a couple brief dream interpretations and see what left we can get to.
Okay.
Visitation dreams.
Oh, yes. First of all, the veil is thin. When people pass away, it's not the end. I don't know any more than that. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. So I'm not here to explain the mystery. I simply can declare I would go, if it was the Inquisition and I was being taken away to defend this, I'd be just like, just give me the can of gas and the lighter. We'll just do it right now. Let's not bother with any of this. I know with every fiber of my being that when we pass out of the body, we're not gone. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think it looks like heaven, and I don't think let's stop because I don't know. But I do know that when we sleep and our conscious mind that orients to time, space, and identity is asleep, the connectedness energy where the consciousness of those who have left the body still exists, people can have the experience of being visited. I believe it is bona fide. Mm-hmm. There is nothing not so about it. I think it's unfortunate that we don't have any control over how that happens or when that happens, because I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who have said, I want grandma to visit, I want my brother to visit, but they haven't. And why is that? It's like, I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said that the visitation occurs when there really is some need for it to occur. And then when it doesn't occur, the connection is so established that it doesn't need to be so visibly experienced by the dreamer. The visitation's dreams, you know you're having one when it's not a chaotic narrative dream. There aren't a lot of things happening. There's one singular setting. It's very often the room that the dreamer is sleeping in. There's almost never anything spoken, or if there is, it's something very, very simple, like, I love you, I'm here, all is well. Things like that. Real simple, fundamental expressions of wellness. And once you hear a story from, like, say, 300 people over a decade, and they describe the exact same thing over and over and over again, that is the very definition of empirical data. Now, I couldn't publish that in a because it's not been controlled. Right. But I am a walking empirical study of connection through dreams of passed on loved ones, because I've heard it over and over and over again, and it's always described in the manner that I just shared.
And it brings a lot of people peace, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I've never had anybody say to me, oh, and I hated it. I've had lots of people say, I wish it would happen again, or I'm sad that it didn't happen at all. Why is that? Why hasn't my mom visited me?
So, a couple more categories of dreams. I used to have a lot of repeating nightmares, screaming dreams. I haven't had them in quite a while. And Jessica, she would always ask me, she'd say, why don't you just wake up in your dream and turn around and face it? So to her, the concept of being awake in your dream was as normal as brushing your teeth.
Yes. Lucid dreaming, baby. Lucid dreaming is the experience of becoming conscious in one's dream. It can be as simple as being very engaged in a dream narrative and then just having the thought, oh, I'm dreaming. That's a lucid dream. Now, that can be taken very far into a kind of extreme continuum. I have had in my life 3 lucid dreams that were, well, 2 of them were, and then one of them a little less, exactly as waking. Like, oh my God, I'm dreaming. I'm in the room. It's sort of over there. I'm here in this dream. I feel awake. I'm as awake and alive and alert as ever, but I'm not. One of them, and 2 of these, by the way, have been in the last 3 months. And one of them was a slightly fuzzy, as if there was like a sepia filter on it. So it wasn't 100% awake. It was 100% awake with a sepia filter on it, right? One of them took place at a picnic table with about 6 or 7 men that I didn't know. I kind of woke up, and here I am at a picnic table. Like, I'm asleep in my bed, but I'm at a picnic table, and I said, oh, hey, guys, we're all dreaming. And that was it. But I'm telling you, Michael, I would go to my death defending the notion that every single person sitting at that table in my dream was a human being alive on this planet somewhere, asleep, dreaming that they were at a picnic table. Maybe true, maybe not true. I just know what I felt, right? Now, there are people who covet this experience and who chase it. I'm not one of those people. It just doesn't interest me. I love that I've had them. I don't teach lucid dreaming techniques, but I'll mention one right here, which I think most people have heard of, just out in the vernacular, out in the zeitgeist. People say, you're supposed to look at your hands. And if that's all you've heard, you'd be like, well, what does that mean? I'll tell you exactly what that means. Intention is everything. So if you want to have lucid dreaming experiences, you've got to set the intention, and you need to be dogged about it and constantly in your waking life saying, I intend to remember my dreams in a lucid way while I'm dreaming. The looking at your hands thing is something you must do during your waking life, and then experience it in your dream life. Now, remember, in the top of our conversation, what did we say happens in REM sleep? You're reviewing everything you've done during the day, which would include this. If you look at your hands during the day, your brain in REM sleep will have to grab that image as it cycles it away. Do it enough with the intention that you'll remember it in a dream can eventually lead to a moment where you're in your dream in the practical way that the brain is feeding itself, cleaning itself off and making memory. That image will come up, then your unconscious might grab it and say, oh my God, I'm dreaming. That's the discipline of looking at your hands in daytime so that you might look at your hands in your sleep time and be aware that you're dreaming.
Very, very cool. And we won't go into the how to use this, why to use this, anything of that. We'll save that for dive into the book or other books on lucid dreaming as well. Yeah. One that Jessica has, since we brought her up just here a minute ago, is she used to have quite a few, you define them as night terrors. It would be dream paralysis. Yeah. And she's going, you've got to ask him, what does one do about this?
Okay. Dream paralysis is functional. And here's the function piece. The brain paralyzes the body right before REM sleep and then releases that paralysis right after REM sleep. And that's because the frontal cortex is so active that if the body weren't literally paralyzed, you would move about your space because you are in your brain moving about space. And when that isn't full enough, sleepwalking results. That's why people sleepwalk and sleep talk, is the paralysis isn't complete enough. So there's a phenomenon that can happen. It's most common in children, but it happens in adults as well, where the conscious mind, remember the orientation to time, space, and identity that's asleep while we're dreaming, wakes up just enough to be aware of time, space, and identity. So time is middle of the night, space is my house, identity is Jessica, but the paralysis is set. And the dreaming experience is open. So there's this openness to the other dimensional consciousness where anything is possible and probably will happen. And I believe other energies and other dimensional energies are present and perceivable. But we've woken up a little bit. Now, if you took away the fearful experience of what it would be like to sense that you're paralyzed, it's an amazing moment. Your soulful consciousness is wide awake and you can perceive every dimension that's present. Wow, that's freaking amazing. There's enough of your identity woken up to be able to see that and go, oh my God, look, there's an entity, there's an energy, there's another dimension. Like the perception of that is quite sacred. This is, by the way, not for nothing, this is where people feel they've been abducted by aliens, because this is where other consciousnesses connect in with ours, and so there's interaction. Again, I don't know, I can't say more about that because I'm not God. I believe that there's nothing to fear about these experiences, even though I've heard countless dozens of people saying, oh no, the energy that was in there was dark and foreboding. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I believe that now, that's not to say that when we perceive all that there is, that some of all that there is very dark and very scary, but not dangerous. Not dangerous. Just the dark and scary parts of life and consciousness. There's a top of the wheel where everything is sunny and beautiful, and a bottom of the wheel where everything is dark and lugubrious, but it's all perfect. It's the paralysis sensation that tells us we're in danger. So the what to do about this is, now this takes a Herculean amount of courage and discipline. The what to do with this is to remember this, to remember what Dr. Michael said, was that you're not actually in danger. You're only frightened because you can't move, and therefore you feel like you can't breathe. So very often people feel, they'll say, oh, the boogeyman that was in the room was sitting on my chest. It's like, no, there was an energy. You couldn't breathe, so you felt like there was something sitting on your chest, and you collapsed those two experiences and said A plus B equals C. Energy in the room plus I can't breathe equals boogeyman sitting on my chest. But it's a false equation. I knew a guy years ago. He was an audience member in the television show that I did, and I had a brief conversation with him. I said, you've got to come in and I need to interview you. And somewhere I have a recording of that interview. He had chronic sleep paralysis, and he all on his own came to this conclusion that I came to, which was, no, I think there's something beautiful here. And so what he did was, every time he had the experience, he simply told himself, this is divine. There's something beautiful here. I'm going to relax and allow the beauty of this experience to reveal itself to me. I don't remember how long it took him. It took him a while. Maybe it took him a year, maybe 2 years. But in that time, though he still had chronic sleep paralysis experiences, he created the experience of it, the entity, showing up as a beautiful goddessy creature that engaged him in a manner, we'll just say, that was complete. Top
very
of the
good.
body, bottom of the body. That's, to me, a perfect example of, if we collapse our fear into our perception, we're going to see it as demonic and scary, but it's not.
Woohoo! All right, we're going to do 2 quick dream interpretations if we can. Then I'm going to give people some guidelines of how they can start recording their dreams, things of that sort, and why they need to get your book so that they can start to do some interpretation on their own. So I had 2 interesting dreams last night. I'm going to go first with the one, in my morning hours, I said, I need a dream for the show. Said that specifically, went to sleep, woke up, and I was told, bring your inner frog. Frog. Like, remember your inner frog. Bring your inner frog. So here's how it went down in the shortest fashion. First, Jessica's dad's upset with me, throwing out all my stuff. But then he was all pleased with himself and gives me a green and black bullfrog-colored jacket to wear. Then I'm chased by a bunch of guys. Jessica's been kidnapped. I find her safe under a table, coalescing as a frog with burned fingers and toes. Now I found I'm a frog, or can climb like a frog, and I'm climbing up a tile wall with a giant blue pool beneath me, and I can actually grab the grout and climb. And these people are chasing me. I get to the top first. I feel in my power. One gets up to me, I put my hand on his head, and I just hold it there like I am in my power. I am in my frogness. I found I'm incredibly adept at climbing. Then there's something with somebody outside of the pool with a stolen wallet looking up to me, waving a wallet. I flip him off, then find out the wallet's for me. Turns out it's not mine, but Jessica's. Then I'm going through a client's yard. I'm afraid that I'm not where I belong, and maybe I've lost my froggy powers. And then I'm climbing another wall again, and as I wake up, I'm told, bring your inner frog.
Oh, well, I love this. Well, first of all, you've gone everywhere in this dream. You've gone to intimate relationship.
Yeah.
You've gone to sort of member of the extended family with father-in-law, right?
Yeah.
You've gone to your relationship to prosperity and abundance in the wallet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's, because for the sake of time, let's understand that every little aspect of this dream is like you visiting, where am I? How am I showing up in my intimate relationships, in my family dynamic, in my relationship to moving about, effectively in the world? And what's my relationship to money, prosperity, and abundance in the form of wallet? And in all of these, frog is your superpower. So there's 2 things that I want to say about frog. One is through mythology, like media oriented mythology, and the other one would be through more animal medicine. So the Western media oriented is that what can the frog become if you kiss him?
The prince.
That's right. So it's about how am I being perceived? Am I either a prince or a frog? That's a good thing. That means that if I show up in my relationship with my spouse as a frog, I can be kissed into a prince. If I show up in my relationship to my father-in-law as a frog, I can be kissed to become a prince. If in my relationship to money and prosperity and abundance, I'm frog-like, I can be prince-like with just a sort of a wish, a moment, a kiss, an experience. So the frog energy is the capacity to always up-level, to always expand into something greater. Now, it's similar in animal medicine with frog, because frogs also in two different ways exemplify in medicine, in animal medicine, the transient nature of expression. One is that the tadpole and the frog are completely different in every way. Tadpole is water-based and fish-like, and then it becomes amphibious, right? So the frog understands that though you're in one form, you're going to change and become a completely different form, which is probably why the princess kissed the frog to become a prince, because built into frog is transformation and change. The other thing is that frogs have a capacity to leap up out of challenge into safety. And this dream had a lot of challenge. So your frog-like nature is the part of you that can, in an instant, leap up, rise above a conflict expression into something more solution-oriented or safety-oriented.
Beautiful. Now, from what you talk about in your book, you talk about people that we see in our dreams are often, if not always in some way, representative of a part of ourselves. I've got Jessica under a table coalescing with burned fingers and toes, but froggy fingers and toes, but I know she's going to be all right.
Okay, so dreams as an expression of just your consciousness is what I call the inner circle of interpretation, where Jessica is part of you. And it's the part of you that can show up in intimacy, the part of you that meets the world in a kind of a welcoming, imago kind of way. But there's an outer circle of interpretation where Jessica is also your wife. She's also a person you interact with. And so the dream can also be reflecting dynamics that are happening within that relationship, where you are an ally to her challenges, where she thinks, oh my God, this isn't going to work. And you're there to say, don't worry, honey, you're half a frog already. Lean in and you will transform up out of this. So do you see how the dream is both you facing challenges and saying, oh, I can rise above this, or I can transform out of this, and you as an ally to your wife, which I'm sure you have to do on a day-to-day basis, because that's part of what happens in relationship. So both are happening at the same time with regard to how we might interpret a dream. I just work with the singular inner one because I often don't have the information necessary to work with somebody on their dream and how it reflects their outside life.
Thank you. So the second one, real briefly, and I was tickled pink to read. In fact, I'm reading your book, and I'm going. Wow, he's describing refrigerators and the importance of refrigerators. I'm like, I've never had a refrigerator dream. Then I went back to my journal this morning, and my earlier dream in the middle of the night, because I had to get up and so I didn't remember it, was a refrigerator dream.
Yeah.
So, well, the really briefest point is refrigerators, all with their doors open or off the hinges, some are not even there, with loaves of bread in it that need to be put back in. My dad, who is alive in real life, and we're struggling with his brain a little bit, and we're working on it, he's there with me as all of these loaves of bread are falling out of the fridges, and I'm trying to put the doors back on the fridges and put the bread back in.
That's right. And so if the door was closable, then all would be well, because you'd be able to preserve the bread, the sustenance, the fundamental way you feed. But in fact, your relationship with your father is challenged by, this is already challenging. And if I can't preserve my relationship with my father, then I'm going to suffer. Right. And so the refrigerator not working is reflecting the fact that the expiration of the bread is reflected as the expiration of your dad as you come to terms with what it's like to be with somebody who's having some, brain challenges and facing aging, right? I want to also just mention the notion of the transparency between the veils of the fact that you're reading about refrigerators and having dreams about refrigerators when you've never dreamt about refrigerators before on the day before you're having a conversation with a dream expert. It's because there is no real separation that we call time. It's all an illusion.
So goosebumps on the arms. As I'm walking back, we went for a run this morning, Jessica and I. We're walking back and we're talking about her having some realization. And we'd already discussed the froggy dream. We're talking about her coming to an epiphany, having a realization, and I stop. I stop her. And I turn her attention to the left. Because there at the mailbox, at the moment she's saying, I have a realization. On top of that mailbox is a bronze frog.
You can't make this stuff up.
Woohoo!
The way the matrixy overlapping of the timing of the walk, the timing of the conversation, the expression of the dream, followed by her expression, and the lining up of arriving at the mailbox exactly at that moment. You can't make it up.
Well, it's like intention. You can set intention for a dream to learn about something. You can set intention to heal something. But you can also walk out your front door and you can set an intention for a symbol, an animal, a something to take place to give you wisdom, guidance, or peace.
I would say that the coming together of storyline, narrative, conversation, dream, frog, bronze frog, connected to interview with dream expert is all working together to land on your viewing audience, if nothing else, to say, the mystery of life is greater than the reality I'm perceiving.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
All right, real quickly, how do we begin getting our dreams down? And let's go particularly for people who are challenged, who their dreams tend to go poof, and they go, oh no.
First and foremost, put the recording device next to your bed. I prefer a pen and paper because the old school way activates the unconscious more than a recording. But if the recording is what works for you, put it next to your bed. Number 2, set the intention. Do it in a prayerful and specific way. Before you go to bed, say, hey, unconscious, higher self, whatever, please help me remember my dreams tonight when I wake up in the morning. 3, and the most important thing is go to the pad and paper and pen in the morning, even if you haven't had a dream to record, and say, I don't remember anything from last night, and wait a moment, and then move on with your day. If you wait for the inspiring dream to come before you write anything down, you'll be waiting a very long time. By writing something down, by going to the pad and paper, you're signaling your unconscious mind to keep the window of memory open longer. That act alone is enough to trigger, eventually, that process happening. Remember that where you're dreaming is not the same place in the brain where you're perceiving. So it's like if the eyes see stuff and activates the brain over here, dreams that are just as visual as seeing aren't over here, they're over here. That's not accurate brain structure, but you get the point. I'm not seeing in dreams in the same way I'm seeing in life. So that's why when you wake up in the middle of the night with a vivid dream and you think, oh, I'll never forget this, but then you do. It's because it's not the same as seeing something and remembering it. It's much more mysterious. So write down, I don't remember anything, pause, and then do it all over again, over and over and over again. And eventually, I think your dream memory will open up.
Beautiful. I have a different process, because I've set up my computer so it has like almost black screen. It's set up for darkroom usage. I go to my computer and I can close my eyes and almost put myself back in the dream space because I don't have any visual stimulus. But what I want to go with that is dream interpretation. Where do we start? Because I went this morning and so I said, I'm typing with my eyes closed. What is this dream about? Please tell me.
One thing I will say about this is one must respect what comes across the horizon to you, right? So if you say you're drawn to purchasing my books that are dream dictionaries that help, then the things that I offer are right for you because that's where you were drawn. If you have a dream dictionary already, I'm not going to tell you to buy my book because it's better.
What is a dream dictionary?
A dream dictionary is a guide of many, many, many symbols with some universally anticipated notions of what that might dream mean or that symbol mean based on what the thing is, what it does, what's its use, what's its essence, what's its qualities if it's an animal. So the idea that a bird might be representational of higher vantage point and ideas and mental processes is connected to, well, birds fly around in the sky. The sky is like our intellect. Birds are ideas that fly across the sky, and they land and they bring us messages because over thousands of years of human history, we have used birds to send messages. So the idea of birds as messengers and vantage point, because they can see higher, isn't something I made up. It's something that consciousness made up, and a good dream dictionary codifies that. It codifies the meaning based on universal principles that come out of what does the thing do? What's its use? What's its essence? That's certainly how I wrote my dream dictionary. And so you have a dream about frogs, you hook up the dream dictionary and you look up frogs. And then it's a trigger mechanism to think, oh, what might I be dreaming of if I'm dreaming of the capacity to change and transform my identity upon the receiving of what's a kiss, but an expression of love? The princess kisses the frog because she says, I give you a love. And then the frog becomes a prince. That's a symbol of, oh, I am transformed from my thoughts about myself as lower and yucky into something magnificent because I'm capable of receiving love. Now, I didn't make that up. That's in the fairy tale.
Woohoo! Okay,
Woohoo!
So where do people go to find out more, to find your dictionary, to find all of your dream books, all three of them?
MichaelLennox.com. I've got links in there for both my dream dictionary and the Little Book of Dreams, my first book, Dream Site. All of these are available everywhere everywhere the books are sold. But it's the best place to find me is MichaelLennox.com.
Fantastic. And if you didn't catch MichaelLennox.com, come on over to InspireNationShow.com and we'll get you over to MichaelLennox.com. Two last questions. First off, I want to take off my coaching hat, put it on you. What one homework assignment do you want to give people to help them with their dreams today?
Well, I would say that you don't need to remember a dream to have value, but if you do remember it, write it down. That increases the value. Share it with another person, and that increases the value even greater. And if you want to take it as far as you can, do something creative in response to the dream that you've had. Make a drawing, write a poem, something that is symbolic and irrational in nature will be speaking back to the unconscious mind in the same language that it is speaking to you in.
Beautiful. I'm thinking now, the last question, Ashawar people, the people of the Amazonian rainforest, who the kids get up in the morning and they all sit around, like gather as a village and discuss their dreams because they believe the dream world is more real than the waking world. What do we tell our kids about dreaming, or particularly if they are having nightmares?
I will answer this question with what not to say.
Thank you, Michael.
Never say to a child, it's just a dream. Never. I get the impulse is to make them feel safe and say, oh, it's not real, it's just a dream. Never say it's just a dream, but join them. Join them in the experience of them being frightened by the nightmare and saying, oh, there, I'm here, you're safe. Tell me what you dreamed. That's the way to create an intimate experience between you and your child in the nightmare, not dismiss it. Oh, it's not real. It's not real. That's a terrible thing to say. Why? Because it feels real. Now you're telling the kid that they're insane. Join them. Say comforting things. You're safe. Tell me what you dream.
Phenomenal. This has been phenomenal, Michael. Any last words of wisdom you want to share?
Dream on, baby.
Woohoo! So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get Llewellyn's Little Book of Dreams and begin getting guidance from your dreams today, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also leave your comments, have some real fun with it. subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up, and check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!